up, team? Happy Friday. Welcome to the Just Fuel Show. Today, we're going to do a little recap of breakfast because I think it's been the past two of our live conversations have now been deleted by Instagram, which is so annoying. So we're going to do a little recap on that. And then we're also going to talk about sleep nutrition, which is really interesting. So we'll let Dr. Mike give him a few seconds to get in here. Hope you all are having a great Friday. What's up, team? Hello, hello, hello. Also, I compiled your questions. So there were a few that we'll see if we have time to get to as well. There he is. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
So good. I'm going to turn these off. Okay, so we're taking all precautions today. My team is recording this video because I am refusing to lose all of this content again. It hurts my heart when I go to post it and just like boop, shuts down. I'm like, no.
I know. Well, last week I understand that Instagram was trying to censor us with all that real breakfast talk.
I know.
So, we're just going to have to keep it a little more fitness influencer and a little less science.
Haters gonna hate. Well, can we start with can we kind of start with that one? I mean, I feel like at some point in time we'll go back and we can talk about these ones in more detail so they can be saved and used. But can we do a little breakfast recap?
Yes, I'm going to do it. So I had all these notes that I made before the last show, and then I cleaned my office and I haven't been able to find them. So I'm going to go straight off memory, and that's why you shouldn't clean your office. So, I think the key things that we talked about, one of the things we talked about was we used, you had a great example of you get up in the morning, you train relatively close to when you have, when you wake up. And so what should you do in that fueling scenario? And one of the things we talked about there is it's hard actually to get in like a lot of nutrition that's going to actually impact your training session, because by the time you start exercising, it's still in your digestive tract and it's not actually fueling your body yet. So in the mornings, if you get up and train really close, the key is actually to eat as little as possible. Just eat as much as you need to feel good, because sometimes people need a little something in their stomach, or maybe they need some carbohydrate or some sugars to just kind of, get their body going, because there is a psychological effect to that when you're going to go and exercise. But you want to go with a higher carbohydrate, lower fat, kind of lower to moderate protein, so it gets through your system quickly and your body can access those nutrients. If you are, not training, I really think breakfast is one of the most important meals. Like, there's just incredible research on it from a protein perspective, how protein at breakfast is going to actually help delay food cravings later in the day. We actually didn't talk about, there's some really interesting circadian rhythm. So the light and dark cycle that is the sun, kind of the rising and the setting of the sun, your body is in sync with that. And eating breakfast actually helps entrain your body to be in line with circadian rhythms, which there are a whole bunch of hormones and different processes. Like if we end up talking about sleep today, that's going to come into it as well, that go with that cycle. And so actually eating breakfast helps sync your body with that circadian rhythm cycle. So that's really important. The other thing, we talked about dinner, you were doing like, I think was it larger dinners?
Yeah, I mean, the past month has been really weird because I was doing the Whole30. And so that was like, but because I work out in the morning and I just refuse to wake up an hour and a half earlier to get my food in, I then will try to eat a bigger meal at night. And then like I was telling you, I'll have like an applesauce or something on my way to my workout, and coffee, that's it.
So with dinners, I think the thing is, you don't necessarily need to over or eat larger amounts of food if you're going to train in the morning.
Okay.
That's not required. And actually a lot of food later at night can actually negatively impact your sleep, which we can talk about when we get going into sleep. But one of the things that I think is important from a breakfast perspective is sometimes people struggle to get protein at breakfast. You know, you
Yeah.
can do protein shakes, which are great. You know, but sometimes people like to have actual food, and you know, not everybody's going to eat 6 eggs for breakfast, right? That's just like too many eggs for
Hmm.
normal humans.
Yeah.
And so taking some of that protein, I call it dinner for breakfast, taking 1 or 2 pieces of protein that you had at dinner and just adding that to your breakfast, so that the accumulation of all the protein that you're eating at breakfast is going to be about 25 or 30 grams, is going to really optimize your protein intake and kind of the overall nutrition of your breakfast. So that's another important, you know, breakfast strategy. And then we talked also about liquid versus solid foods at
Hmm.
breakfast. Now, solid foods are always going to be the most satiating and filling. And so I think for breakfast, that's going to be a go-to for people. But at the same time, I know breakfast is a chaotic time of day for a lot of people. And so a
Yeah.
smoothie is really optimal because it's quick, it's easy, you know, you can make it without a lot of preparation and you can take it and go with you. So
Yeah.
from a practical perspective, smoothies I think are also really good for people. It's just figuring out what works best in your life. You know,
Yeah.
so from a satiety and fullness standpoint, a solid meal is going to do you better. But from a consistency standpoint, maybe it is going to be a smoothie.
Yeah. And there's also like the timing of everything. Instead of skipping, I've had to convince myself, because I'll train. So then I train until like 9:30, whatever, like 10. And then I actually eat my lunch now right after that, because that's easy, rather than like waiting and feeling like I didn't eat breakfast and then I wait until lunchtime to eat. I had such a big gap in between there that my body was not happy. So now I eat
Yeah.
that lunch at like 10:30. And then I still get my 3 meals, because then I'll eat something later on in the day. And then I don't do a good job. I eat really, like dinner, I probably ate at like 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
Like it's not, yeah. Don't take cues from me when it comes to nutrition. Like, I'm not doing it right. I try, but woo,
No, I think you do a lot more right than you give yourself credit for.
well, right now I'm not doing it right. It's all one big test, and it's going downhill really fast. None of the show that we were talking about, the Whole30, got aired, but I've been doing the Whole30, and for me, I wasn't finding enough carbs to eat, so I've just been crashing and burning like majorly.
You're right. That was the other piece we ended up talking about, was carbs on
Yeah.
a Whole30 or paleo type diet.
I mean, I think the thing is like, just to like wrap that one up, the thing that's been really cool about the Whole30, and the Whole30 is a diet, and I'm totally anti-diet, but it's an anti-inflammatory diet, which I knew that I needed something to kind of like shake me back into, I just was feeling awful, and it totally did that. So I am 100% a proponent of like that worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it is only meant for 30 days, because like, it is not sustainable. My training is only getting harder. I am not carving out enough time to make food, and it's really hard to find food when you're out and about, when you're on the Whole30. And so I was not eating enough, and it was showing. Like, I just would die after a workout.
You know, I can see from all the Thigh Master video clips how intense your training is getting. It is. It's tough.
Oh my God. You want to know what's so funny though, on a tangent? You know how many people have asked for us to do like a jazzercise or like 80s aerobics now? And I'm like, I think I'm going to find an 80s aerobics instructor to come in.
I mean, you pretty much got the outfit.
I got the outfit, but I'm not going to be the coach. I don't know how to coach that stuff.
Was it?
Yeah.
Everyone needs to check that out. Was that on your page or the Just Move page?
It's on both. It's on both.
It's on both, yes. I was super impressed, even that you were able to find one of those.
I know, right? I know. It was so shitty though. It was like breaking every 2 seconds. But I know the team, my team is like incredible. They are, Craig, my business partner, has been wanting an April Fool's video. We're on a tangent right now for 3 years, and we've never been delivering it. So this year we were like, we're delivering him an epic. We had an email that went out. Like, it was like team went all out for this one. It was so cool.
Scavenged every Goodwill in the greater Seattle area trying to find a Thigh Master.
No, it was on Amazon. It was. Yes.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
It's
so good.
Shop local actually, but
I request next year for April Fools your bodybuilding pre-contest diet and training program?
You know, I've done that before. That's when I
No, I
knew.
didn't. I didn't know that. I've
Oh
done
yeah,
that too.
yeah. So that's when I knew that like that's when I knew any type of restriction I like fully mentally, physically rebel against. But when I was first, after I got out of college, right before when I still thought I had something left in me and I wanted to compete and like win at something, I was a like new trainer, and in, you know, that industry, the head guy at our gym was like, oh, you should do bodybuilding, or like it was fitness competition at that time. So I lasted probably 3 weeks on chicken, broccoli, and rice and whatever it was. Everybody in my entire life was like, what is wrong with you? You look sickly. Like, you
In 3
look
weeks.
awful. It was so bad. I mean, yeah, like I look gaunt, your skin's, you know, it's like not good. Anyways, so that didn't work for me. Never again. Never again. And that's when I also was like, okay, yeah, don't let somebody tell you what to do. Like, you already knew you didn't want to do that. But yeah. Okay, let's get back to
the show.
Did I free? Am I here? Am I back?
You're back. You're back. Yeah.
Sorry. My phone is on do not disturb, but it's still
Getting disturbed.
calls are coming through. Are we here? Am I here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You're like delayed, so I don't know if I'm here or what's going on. Okay, can we go? This is such a random conversation today. Can we go into sleep nutrition?
Well, wait. Do you want to do the questions that you got first?
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes we ask questions that we're like, yeah, we're not going to answer them.
No, that's
I want to keep people engaged.
Yeah. So there were a few questions about intermittent fasting. For anybody that's tuning in right now, there were quite a few questions around diets to lose weight, and I am going to respectfully not engage in those conversations. So we're not going to talk about that. But there was a handful of questions about intermittent fasting. And then there was a question about CBD. And I didn't know if you had any insight or opinions about CBD.
I would categorize myself as not qualified to answer a specific question on CBD.
I thought so. Yeah. But well, I didn't think so, but I just, yeah.
I feel like I've let you down now. Next
No.
I all CBD research.
No. I had an assumption that it was not something that you'd be able to answer or want to. So maybe briefly touching on intermittent fasting, I think they just wanted your opinion on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting, in the way that it's generally used, right, in a 24-hour, 18 to say 24-hour fasting window, is essentially a way to restrict calories. And, you know, when you fast for that duration, there aren't really additional magical physiological effects that are sometimes touted with fasting. What it really comes down to is you have there's a restricted time when you eat. That's why science will actually call it time restricted feeding. And so as a result, you're going to eat less food, because if you have 4 hours or 6 hours to eat versus 18, right, you're going to eat then less. And then if you look at energy balance, so calories in, calories out, over the course of 7 days, if 2 of those days you're not eating, right, that's going to create a calorie deficit in a way that generally, like two 24-hour fasts, it would be recommended you don't eat for 24 hours spaced out by 1 or 2 days, and then the rest of the time you just kind of eat whatever you want. And so if you're eating like at a normal caloric balance and you don't eat for 2 days, it's going to drop you into caloric deficit. That's how intermittent fasting generally works. When you start getting longer periods, so like 3 days of fasting, then it starts to actually get pretty interesting physiologically, and you can get this additional stimulation in your immune system. They've looked at like longer periods of fasting. There's some interesting research looking at how it can mitigate side effects or reduce negative side effects from chemotherapy. And when you're starting looking at this like 3-day fasting, so it's like much longer than people would consider fasting. And then when you get into like even 7 days of fasting, there are potentially some other anti-aging benefits that researchers, I would say, are looking to quantify. So there's some concepts scientifically that we know about, but don't have a good way of quantifying it, like blood sugar, right? Which you can measure and you're like, that's blood sugar.
Yeah.
And so there are these benefits with longer periods of fasting that we know about, but are just having trouble measuring objectively. But most people aren't volunteering for 3 to 7 day fasts because it's rather difficult. But the 24-hour fast twice a week or 18-hour fasts every day or several days of the week, there's nothing wrong with it. I think you do run into a problem with protein, because if you're only eating in a 6-hour window, and protein has a time-dependent piece to when you can eat it, like your protein intake is more optimal if you can space it out over several hours, not eat it continuously. And so if you're only eating 6 hours, because you fasted 18 hours, it's hard to get that spacing for optimizing protein. So if you're training hard, then you're probably not going to be able to optimize your protein intakes, and it's going to be hard to get enough calories. If you're training really hard and you're very active and you're only eating in a 6-hour window, it's hard to get enough calories. And I know there are people on the internet that do it, but my experience has been working with individuals that have engaged in and worked with a variety of different kinds of intermittent fasting. Energy becomes an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think with everything, it's like just asking yourself why you're doing it. Like, we've had so many conversations about like fad diets and fad foods and all these things. And I think it's just like asking yourself why you're doing it is really important. And then making sure that, and if you do want, like, I would just highly suggest having, like working with a professional if you want to do these types of things for specific reasons, that you're not just Googling it and then trying to figure out. Because you can just like really, I feel like when people play around with nutrition, you can really like fuck stuff up. Like, it's really like, you have to know what you're doing. And we just like, you can get anything on the internet, but it's not always the truth. And so like watching, like paying attention or having somebody that's guiding you through it is pretty important. And it's not for everybody. Like, intermittent fasting is not for everybody.
No, I definitely agree. And I think especially if you start looking at prolonged periods of fasting, you should definitely try to connect with somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of unintended consequences to, you saying, why you're doing this. Like, I had a friend who, was very well known in the health industry, and he started fasting just as a means of testing it out. And he kind of got into this rhythm of he enjoyed it, and then what he was finding was he was just eating less and less. And one day he looked at himself and he was like, oh my God, he's like, I don't look good. Like, he'd probably lost 30 pounds and maybe had 15 to lose. And, just was to the point where he was like, this isn't good because I'm not getting all the nutrients I need.
Yeah.
And so I think it is important to just, to really think through why you're doing it and put it into play in a smart way.
Yeah.
The one other thing where I find people have trouble practically with it is when you come off your fast, it's really important to just consume that next meal as if it was like any other meal, not as if you hadn't eaten in 24 hours. Because if you sit down and go all in, it's easy to eat 2,000 calories in one sitting, and it kind of negates everything that you just did. So it can be hard from a behavior and from a cognitive perspective. Some people like that challenge, but it's just something to be aware of, because there are a lot of personalities food-wise that with restriction then comes overcompensation of eating. And so I think it's important to know who you are and what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really important to know who you are, what works for you. And then like being able to be in touch enough to know, like for me with the Whole30, like I made it through the 30 days, but for me, I'm like, I value so much having the energy to go crazy in my workouts and recover and do what I want, that it's like, if that's detrimental, like I made it through the 30 days and now I can't wait to add carbs back in. I learned like I feel so much better without dairy, and probably like I won't eat a ton of gluten and I feel great, and that's easy. But there's a lot of other things that I am super pumped to add back in. But I know myself, and it was a great reset for me, and that worked for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And that's the problem with all of these trends and like all these things that come out. It's like it's a one size fits all thing, and that it works for everybody, and it doesn't. Like certain things work for certain people and they don't for others. And yeah, you have to know yourself well enough to know.
Well, I think that how you just described what you got out of the Whole30 is important. that I think it is valuable to explore different dietary approaches because
Mhm.
you learn different things. If you
Yeah.
always eat the same way, you kind of always eat the same way, and you don't know what changes would impact your body differently. Like you were able
Mhm.
to kind of hone in on like, well, maybe this dairy thing or gluten really wasn't, it doesn't agree with me. Like I need like my digestion is better, I'm feeling better,
Mhm.
etc. One thing that people do report getting with intermittent fasting is a little bit better of an understanding on hunger, what's driving their hunger, how to
Mhm.
deal with that sort of hunger, which I think is something we don't work on or talk about enough,
Yeah.
all those factors that impact hunger. And so I think that could be a really positive, but it is about figuring out, what is working for you and not just saying like, well, intermittent fasting is the thing. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to do it blindly. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, can we jump into sleep nutrition?
Yeah. So,
Speaking of sleep though, also, I will like cutting out a lot of alcohol. Oh, I did do the Whole 30 not legally because I was drinking tequila. So let me just say that. I know. Being honest. I'm just telling you. I made it 2 weeks.
illegal, illegal.
I'm an illegal Whole 30er. I made it 2 weeks and then I was like, you know what? No. Um, but I was just gonna say this because
No.
I always have to break rules. No matter what, I have to break rules. So, but I'm going to sleep or going back to your sleep thing, I have noticed, so I'll drink on the weekends now, and I definitely am like not drinking during the week, and sleep is completely different. Like I do realize I was going to sleep, but probably not going into a deep sleep. And I feel it's like been a game changer, that side of
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
thanks to you.
No. Hey, well, happy to help.
Learn something.
That's a, this is a total tangent, but related, if that's possible. Stephen Colbert, the comedian,
Yeah.
had said that he gave up alcohol for the first 12 hours of Lent and then realized he'd given up enough in 2020. And so, and then, so I understand.
I mean, for me, the problem is I just know myself too well. So it's like if I restrict everything, I'm like a very black or white person. Like the pendulum's here or it's over here. So if like I'm restricting everything, I'm like miserable. I want to give it all up. And I like really wanted to do the Whole 30. And I was like, this one thing is like, I like kicking it on the weekends. Like I work crazy hard and I just like that thing, that like chill factor. And so I was like, fine, just add this one thing, but you have to stick to everything else. And so it worked for me. Like I don't know if I got all the right effects because I put alcohol in my system, but whatever. Whatever. I learned also, this is a big one for the Whole 30. I learned that cooking is not that crazy hard. and I can make some things. I also learned I'm a better baker than I am like chef. But
Really?
that was a really big learning experience for me. Like, wow.
Yes.
Mashed potatoes. Like there's all these things that now like we can make no problem. Yeah.
Mashed potatoes. I can do no problem.
No, smashed, not mashed. There's a difference. And they're so good.
Like
you
it's
boil
just
them.
faster. You just
Yes, you boil them. You smash them. You put a little bit of whatever olive oil or avocado oil. Put them back in. Bake them so they get crispy. Then we like on the Whole 30 they have all those sauces with like balsamic something sauce on it, like fire, so good. That was another thing I learned about myself in case anybody cared.
No, it's really good. Cooking is I think people think cooking is that difficult. It's not. It takes time. It's funny that you gravitate towards baking because I think baking is like very difficult.
You know why I am a very, obviously I said like black and white. I like to follow like I like things to be. And so baking is like to a T. And like, there's I cannot stand, like my mom does this, where it's like, you just do all this. And it's like, her shit always tastes good, but you can't follow along. Like, it's like people that can cook can just cook. And I'm like, I'm not like that. I have no skills in the kitchen. I don't know what tastes good together. When you say a pinch of salt, I don't know if a pinch is like a big pinch or like, I don't know. And that shit panics me. I just want you to tell me what to do.
That's me and my wife. My wife is like, give me the recipe. I'm weighing it out. Boom, boom, boom. I'll look at the recipe to just kind of get the emotional feels of it.
No.
And then, and then just
I
let it
cannot
rip.
stand people like you. And then when you guys try to teach us how to like make food, it's like, oh, it's not that hard. And didn't you know that like this and this go together? And I'm like, no, how the hell was I ever supposed to know that? I'm new to this part of my house. I have no idea.
This part of my house. I've never seen this whole frying pan scenario here.
But I am very excited to learn how to cook some more.
Yeah, that's good.
Minimally. Yeah. Okay, wait, before we're done, can we talk about some sleep nutrition stuff?
Yes. So the biggest thing for sleep is going to be duration. I think that's like, sleep has gotten really complicated because, there's watches and there's apps and all this other stuff. Like the biggest thing is if you're not in bed enough, you're not going to sleep. There needs to be just a commitment to the time spent. It's like going to the gym. Like you got to commit to the time. Mm-hmm. And the same is true for sleep. Like if you're committed to watching late night TV, like you're probably not going to be committed to getting enough sleep unless you can sleep in the mornings. And knowing your schedule, and a lot of people's mornings are defined by a certain start time. And so what's really important is to then back calculate how much sleep you need based on your defined start time, and then really figure out, are you committed to getting to bed at that time? 7 hours at the minimum, 9 hours if we're living the dream, right? But that's really being committed to the time is very important. Yeah. And then what you get into is quality of sleep. How can you improve sleep quality? And then are there any sort of additives or things that can help you get better sleep, get more sleep, get more out of it, fall asleep faster? So being committed to that time is step number one. When you look at then kind of what are the nuances to optimizing sleep, we were talking about circadian rhythms a little bit earlier. There is, so there's kind of like this long held nutrition belief, like you shouldn't eat after 9 o'clock, right? Which is just literally made up. There's nothing to really, like, you've heard that before, right? Like,
yeah.
You can't eat after 9 o'clock. But that was made up for, I don't even know why that was made up. It was probably just because after 9 o'clock, like, chances are the food you're eating is not going to be that great. Like nobody's going for kale at 9:45, right? It's Frosted Flakes. So it's more of that. But really now what research is showing is that there's your hormone, your hunger hormone, ghrelin, is the one hormone. You have one hormone in your body that stimulates hunger. That ghrelin has been shown to sensitize your brain to melatonin. So melatonin is another compound that your brain secretes that basically tells your body it's time to go to bed. And so ghrelin can sensitize your body to that. So if you are a little bit hungrier at night, so if you stop eating earlier in the day, that can actually help lead to better sleep. Now, there's like with anything else, there's a couple nuances to this. So if you are extremely active and, recovery is a huge concern, there is other research showing that if you consume like a protein shake before bed, that can help with muscle recovery and also muscle protein synthesis. And so I think that's an important thing to take into account. It's kind of like with breakfast. There's like a bunch of different choices that you need to make based on your body. So, it's not like, well, I'm not going to eat after 5 p.m. because Dr. Mike said so, because you need to make sure you're getting in all the nutrients. Some people too, when you look at work shifts and, just when people are able to eat, like you might just have to eat dinner at 9 o'clock, because that's your schedule. And you should not like, oh, I'm not going to eat because it's too late. But if you can, eat smaller meals later in the day. Smaller meals later in the day, larger meals earlier in the day, kind of goes along with that circadian rhythm nutrition idea. And that can help optimize and improve sleep quality. Alcohol is a big one, from inhibiting sleep. Like we talked about this in the alcohol show, it'll help you fall asleep. Like it helps you fall asleep quicker, but then it disrupts your sleep rhythms later at night. And so that's another really important thing to think about.
Yeah. The thing about sleep it's always so fascinating to me because people are trying to figure out what's the magic pill? What's the thing that I can do that's going to make me the healthiest? And it's so fascinating that it always comes back to, honestly, the simplest things. Like sleep, I am pretty damn good at getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And over the past probably like 2 years, I made that a really key thing. And it's an absolute game changer. Like sleep is everything. Hydration is everything. You know, like, so it's like, it's so interesting how we love to make things so complicated, but the reality is that the simple things that you can do, like sleep, like hydration, like trying to eat more whole foods, are really the best things that you can do for yourself. And it's always fascinating talking to people where people are looking to like go all out and do all this thing. And I'm like, no, just like start with getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
Just like start respecting that.
If you're not getting in bed till midnight, like no supplement or hack or any of this, like it's not unless you don't start work till noon.
Yeah.
You know, it's that commitment. I think you said within the last 2 years, you were committed to getting enough sleep. That's really what it takes. Like there's so many reasons to stay awake now.
Yeah.
And pointless reasons, right? Yeah. But there's so many things that you can do to stay awake. And it's just saying like, no, this is really important. Yeah. And the data on how your body functions when you have adequate sleep is incredible.
Yeah.
From, cognition to immune function to blood sugar control to food decisions. Like it's really unbelievable.
Yeah. And I can't stand the culture that's like, like work harder than everybody else, you'll sleep when you're dead, and like all these things. And I'm like, no, like I'm going to take care of myself, and then I'm going to be able to work more efficiently, and I'm going to feel good. And it's been a game changer. Like honestly, sleep. And it's interesting, especially in the world of like being a business owner and this and that, is like when you do that, then you must not be working hard enough, or, it's like, it was a hard shift for me personally to make, that somehow the story that goes along with the fact that you could sleep into a certain time, or that you weren't up at 4 a.m. working, I had to like rewire this whole thing that was like, no, like I'm working super hard and I work later into the night because I know myself well enough to know like how I function, but like sleep is going to be and is such a game changer for me. And I'm a completely different person when I sleep. When I sleep and when I move. Yeah.
And so there's this concept called sleep debt, which is, let's say your body needs 8 hours of sleep, right? Then if you only get 7, then you have this hour of sleep debt. And finding ways, other ways to optimize your sleep is to try to go to bed around the same time every day. That helps because your body gets in a rhythm. But then also finding times when you can catch up on that sleep debt. And sleep debt runs about, we had our first twins like 12 years ago. So I think sleep debt runs at least 12 years. But scientists generally say it's about a 2-week window. So
I didn't know that's a real thing. I thought that was a joke. Like I thought sleep debt and like, I'll catch up on my sleep on the weekend was like a joke. You're saying it's real.
It's for real. Yes.
Oh.
So what I'm not saying is I don't think you should say, well, I'm going to just get 4 hours of sleep, for these 3 nights, and then I'm going to catch up later. But it is a real thing, like that if you get, shorter amounts of sleep, and then you follow those up with longer amounts to kind of eat up this sleep debt, that you think of it in like 2 hour or 2 week chunks, that it actually will help. It'll significantly help improve, like your mental performance and your affect and kind of recapture that sleep.
I did not know that. If that was on a, quiz, I would have failed that. I thought that was totally another like fad thing that we were sold.
No, and it's funny that we're talking about this now. So for the past like 6 weeks, I've been tracking and playing around with it because I had read some other research on it, and it really does make a difference. So I've been looking at it in these 2-week windows and trying to make sure that I'm basically at zero budget on sleep debt. And one, it's much more difficult than you think because it's easy to lose 4 hours of sleep. Like you go to bed late, or you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. Trying to make up for 4 extra hours of actual sleep is really difficult. And so it's one of those.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, you don't want to get behind the 8 ball. It's really hard.
When you've been calculating this, is 8 your golden number or is 7 your golden number?
7.5 is my consistent. I would call it my golden number and my realistic number.
Okay, cool. That's good.
And I have about like, I've worn an Apple Watch and I to track sleep for about 2 years. So I have 2 years worth of sleep data, and 7.5 hours is pretty much, the best I'm going to do at this point in my life.
Yeah. And it's a game, but like 7.5, seven even compared to 6 is.
I was just going to say that between 6 is probably what I would gravitate towards if I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. And the difference between 6 and 7.5 is lights out. Yeah. Like lights out.
Yeah. I also don't like it the other way. See, this is why I can't make up for sleep. I do not feel good when I sleep longer. Like if I was to sleep like 9+ hours, like I can't get out of that. Like I'm like grog. I don't like sleeping in like for a long period of time. I like sleeping in, but that's because I went to bed really late.
The other thing you can do is naps. Like naps are legit.
I can't wake up from naps, so I don't nap.
So one of my favorite books is called Take a Nap, Change Your Life. And it's well worth reading because it's all about the science of strategic napping and how napping at different lengths will give you different things. So like 20-minute naps can improve like immediate cognitive function and focus, whereas 90-minute naps help with physical restoration and recovery. And then if you get really nerdy, when you take a nap during the day, actually also can have this impact. So naps are really cool. The book is Take a Nap, Change Your Life. And it goes along with that same idea that you were talking about, how, this like gotta work hard culture, gotta stay up late, gotta do this. Like napping is like the ultimate laziness. Right. With that line of thinking. Right. And I let that go, probably 3 years ago. My wife always says that I was blessed with one thing. It was the ability to fall asleep anywhere at any moment. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a big thing. So I could literally go over to the futon in my office, shut the lights, fall asleep, wake up in 20 minutes, and I'm off to the races.
See, I can fall asleep, but I can't wake up. The work, like for me, that has been something, especially I feel like as a female in business, I've had to like really, that's for a whole nother topic, but I've had to like really adjust myself to know that like once I wasn't training 6 a.m. clients and I could be somewhere at 7:30, that was okay not to wake up at like 5:30. You know what I mean? Like it's this whole like retraining. It doesn't mean that you're lazier. It doesn't mean that you're not a good businesswoman. It doesn't mean any of those things. It's just like, for me, it's always been, I just know myself. I am a night person. I've always been a night person. That has never changed. And so I just adjusted myself. So my day doesn't start until X amount, just so that I can take care of myself. But it doesn't define like who I am or how I am as a businesswoman. And also my business partner always says, work smarter, not harder. And the more sleep, the better I feel. Smarter I am, the better I work. Like, it's like, just know yourself. So yeah, that's for a whole nother topic though.
No, it's very true.
And I didn't even realize what time it was. We just keep talking. Okay. We're going to pause this right here, but I do just want to say, anybody that is listening to Dr. Mike and I, always feel free to reach out to us. Also ask your questions. Like, the reality is, we say this every time, but we really are here to answer. Well, I'm here just to engage your questions and like topics and things that you guys want to know. So always feel free to reach out to us either through VitaHustle, me, or Dr. Mike, wherever. It'll all come back to the same place. So thank you, Dr. Mike. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Yep.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.